Ian's actually the reason that we have this footage to show this evening. Some of the stuff that you'll see was actually aired, as Ian will explain. It just hasn't been aired since, the early 80s. But New Wave Theater was a show that was on Night Flight between 80 and 83.
It was on from like 82 to 80.
But it was on Access.
Access
From 80. See, this is why I brought him. And Peter Ivers was the host. It was produced by an insane man named David Jove, who came up with the concept and went around LA and taped new wave acts and then eventually created the show out of it. And I'm going to have Ian just briefly tell you just a little bit about what we're going to see this evening.
Hi. What this is a couple of different things you're going to see. The first half hour are highlights, not exactly the same as what was released on the Best of New Wave Theater, but maybe there's one or two of the bands that were on that comp. Mixed in the format of an original show, but they're like remastered as well as they could be off of the original 3/4 broadcast, or camera loads actually. And so there's kind of a fake episode that the Night Flight people who own the show, a guy named Stuart Shapiro, is trying to relaunch Night Flight as a late night TV commodity. And so he edited together edited together about a half hour of entertaining stuff that kind of summarizes New Wave Theater. Some of it hasn't been seen, some of it has. And then the second thing is a full episode, and it's kind of a unique episode that was done in late 1980 when they were still just cable access only on Theta Cable in Los Angeles. And the producer, David Jove, was usually shooting this stuff in like basement clubs or local clubs, or he'd rent a cheap warehouse, light up, there would usually be a grid if it was at a club where they'd just point the lights in different corners of the warehouse. They'd have different bands set up all around at the same time, and then the crew would move around the room and shoot them, and somebody would move the lights. And so, but this one case, they got into Paradise Studios, and he made some kind of handshake deal with Leon Russell, the guy from Tulsa, Oklahoma, who owned an expensive TV studio, that he would be a partner in the show. And they had all these gadgets and stuff. So this episode's kind of weird because he racked up a big bill and used all this fancy equipment. It doesn't look like other New Wave Theater episodes. So that's the second episode. And then the last thing is just one song by Peter Ivers that he performed on the show.
How did Peter die?
Peter was bludgeoned to death in his apartment in 1983 in March while he was sleeping. The week that he was about to, he had told the producers that he was no longer doing New Wave Theater, and he had just sold a major screenplay to Mark Canton, who actually recently produced 300, but at the time he was he had associate produced Caddyshack. So Peter sold a screenplay, and he was basically going to kind of move into sort of the higher life, the higher upper part of Hollywood, and move out of the new wave scene, and he was killed. He was 36.
Do you know why?
Buy my book and find out.
Well, it'd help if you read the book, but basically, there's about 3 or 4. There's hundreds of different possibilities that people told me, and that they told the detectives at the time, and that they told the cold case detectives now. I actually got the cold case division of the Los Angeles Police Department to reopen the case this year, and so they're looking into it again, partly based on sort of the interviews I did for the book.
Did you say Leon Russell had something to do with the production of this?
Yes.
The singer, the famous Leon Russell?
Yeah, I'm gonna let you.
Yeah, just on a couple episodes, they made some handshake deal that New Wave Theater, because it was starting to take off locally and get talked about, and everybody was going to the tapings. It was a who's who at the tapings of punk rock scenesters and some Hollywood types via Peter Ivers. So he managed to hustle his way. David Jove was a hustler type guy, legendary guy you'll read about in this book, and kind of a dark match for Peter with negative energy for all of Peter's positive energy. But anyway, he managed to hustle his way in there and sell Leon Russell on the idea of being a partner in the show. And they filmed there for a couple days and did that like in the second half of this thing. Kind of stupid effects like the freezing and the multi-cameras. That's actually a fancier looking show than most of the one-camera early New Wave theater. So he did that, and then Leon gave him a bill for a lot of money. And he said, well, I thought we were partners, and I've waited too long for that money, get it or screw off. And so when Jove made his deal to get it on the USA Network, he had to pay off Leon Russell. And as a result, he didn't really make any money on his show ever for anything. Not even, well, the home video made like 10 cents.
Yeah. Jove never did very well with money. However, he did introduce, it is said that he introduced John Lennon to LSD, and that he was the guy at the Rolling Stone Redlands bust that was working with the police that got the Rolling Stones arrested.
Did Ivers introduce John Belushi to the band Fear?
Did Ivers introduce John Belushi to Fear?
Yeah.
Yes. The story goes that Belushi was watching New Wave Theater one night, because Belushi actually spent the night at Ivers, and Ivers' girlfriend was Lucy Fisher, who was a producer who helped start Zoetrope with Coppola. And Belushi stayed at Ivers and Lucy Fisher's on their couch a couple days before he first appeared on Saturday Night Live. And he was really into, the punk scene. He went to CBGB's, in New York. And so when he went out to LA, Peter kind of showed him around. And one night, Belushi was watching Peter on New Wave Theater and saw Fear beating the crap out of Peter on the show, which they did 3 or 4 times. And what Spit Sticks from Fear told me is that Belushi supposedly called up Peter and said, "Are you all right? I saw you on TV getting the shit kicked out of you by that band Fear." And Peter explained that, that was their thing, that they go on TV and Peter acts like that and Fear pretends to beat him up and it makes really great TV. And that Belushi just thought that was the coolest thing ever. And he's like, I gotta meet Fear. And so he became good friends for a short period of time with Spit Sticks and Durf Scratch from Fear, and they hung out. And the night before Belushi died, Belushi ran into Durf at a club in Hollywood, and Durf recognized that Belushi was, really not doing well, and it was the night before, and that he, was like sweating bullets, and that he just looked really bad, and he was with this woman who it seemed was continuously taking him to the bathroom. And so Durf said, listen, John, why don't you come over tonight and we'll play some music, I'll go home right now and I'll get my guitar out and, let's just play some music and forget all this other stuff. And Belushi said, great, but he never showed up. And the next day, Jim Belushi, John's brother, called Durf and said, did you hear what happened to my brother? And then he died. So it's sort of an interesting lost story, John Belushi, Ivers, and Fear's sort of connection to the last days.